Okay, and as promised, we will do some Kenshi today. Ah, Kenshi. How I love thee. Shit. Where am I? Okay. I'm in my house. I am sitting at my desk. I have my stream going. I'm in a weird headspace today. I don't know if I said that. So, I'm probably going to be talking a little bit about that. And when I do, be warned. There's going to be a little bit of, I don't know, triggering stuff. Talking about bad mental states and whatnot. Let's continue my game with my prisoners, because they were doing pretty good. I still had them both. They hadn't died yet. They're working in the daytime and causing all sorts of mischief at night. Knife's a little wounded, apparently. Oh, we're both a little wounded. Oh my god. I guess we must have had a fun night last night. Whew. So, yeah. Where am I now? So last night, I had a little bit too much to drink, as usual. So, I recently got out of what I really don't want to call an abusive relationship, but there was a little bit of that going in it. And I don't think the person on the other end of it would even admit to it or appreciate me calling it that. But I'd come to regard that person and their family as pretty much my family. And then basically after being in a relationship and not being able to deliver to them what they needed or wanted, after, 20 years, we finally decided to not only end it, but they decided that they didn't want me to be part of their family anymore. Which for somebody like me, the autism, the ADHD, my psychiatrist recently found out, the CPTSD, several other weird mental issues that I'm having. It's not something easy for me to deal with, especially having to change living environments. And at the time, I wasn't really on great terms with my family, or at least, I mean, they were fine with me, I suppose. I wasn't really in the headspace to be fine with them, especially my mom, who was, she was I don't know, I mean, she wasn't a bad person, really, in most senses of the word, just a person who, first off, she was, definitely a person who was a product of their time. So, there's a little racism in there because she was born in the 40s, I believe. She was also, oh, this is pretty quiet. Pretty quiet here. Probably use some music or something. Anyway, I got to kind of watch that, like, casual racism as I was growing up turn into political activism for her. And needless to say, if you're of that mindset, there's really only one political party you're going to deal with in this country. And, that's the political party that pretty much supports and endorses white supremacy, which I do have a huge issue with. The worst part is that she was a member of the Tea Party movement, and I don't know if you remember those guys, but those were the ones that had, when President Obama got elected, decided that they were going to spread the lie that he wasn't a United States citizen, that they wanted to see his birth certificate. They called them birthers, right? And this spawned a lot of mental dissidence in me, because of course I had a parent, somebody who was supposed to be a somebody I looked up to, right? This person was supposed to be a authority figure for me, and I've always been kind of anti-authoritarian because of my mental issues. Um, but having somebody that you're supposed to look up to, that's supposed to be, helping you, taking care of you, all that kind of stuff, because they are your family, follow a path like that is kind of weird. So I spent like a large portion of my life trying to figure out what objective truth was, How do you find objective truth? Because I don't really know if people who said shit like that believed it. I mean, for all I know, they did, which is weird because, I mean, people believe in shit like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and, the whole, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff like that, the cryptozoology movement, and, yeah, I mean, you can just take a look at, like, the skeptic community to kind of figure out the weird shit behind that, pareidolia effects and whatnot. And so I started doing, like, a lot of, like, research on, psychology, skepticism, sociology, et cetera, et cetera. Even political science and philosophy, psychology. I probably already mentioned a lot of that. And just to kind of learn how to figure out, well, what is fact, what is truth, and it was a monumental journey, starting from when I was in my early 20s, and I was trying to basically learn how to connect with my parents and my family, or at least specifically my mom. Because she had these beliefs and I had a hard time dealing with them. When you say something like the president isn't a citizen and that we need to see his birth certificate to prove it, to me it just kind of sounds like racism. It sounds like, I don't know, poorly disguised racism, which is kind of what it was. But the question is do you actually believe that, or are you lying? And if so, why? Why would you do that? So with me, it was a rough time dealing with that. And I started off with really benign things like I said, like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and figuring out what objective truth is and how you verify stuff like that. Recently in the news, we had one of our presidential candidates, when they were asked what they thought the Civil War was over, basically avoiding the term slavery, which, of course, if you look at all the primary documents regarding that entire debacle in our country, you really can't avoid the fact that the primary documents show, things like the state's direct declaration of intent kind of show that that's what it was about. I mean, there's really no denying it. So, either ignoring or rewriting history is just, not gonna make that any less true. Because we objectively have stuff that says that that's what it was about. Things like the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot. I mean, all you really have to look at is biodiversity and the way the ecosystems work. I mean, you obviously know that a small lake in northern Scotland's not going to support either a carnivorous or plant-eating animal of that size for that long. The only explanation could be magic, and that's just like saying supernatural, which means beyond nature, and to me that's just magic, magical thinking. So anyway, it's just like, how do you know the sun is going to rise tomorrow? How do you know that? Well, I mean, you have a lot of firsthand experience. You've lived every day of your life, waking up knowing that it's going to come up. You have a lot of other people's experiences that you can read about or even ask. So, you can objectively figure out sun's going to come up tomorrow, right? You can objectively figure out that the reasons why a lot of states seceded from the nation was slavery. They endorsed not only just slavery, but that specific type of slavery, the superiorness of the white man over, African Americans, which are not Africans in general, anybody darker. It was just supporting white supremacy, is all it was. You know that there's no Bigfoot because, I mean, there'd be traces other than the odd random faked footprint, fecal matter, corpses, evidence of them participating in the ecosystem would be there. Same with the Loch Ness Monster. I mean, so that brings us back to me trying to deal with my mom and the fact that she would say what I essentially know is a racial dog whistle about the president and how you'd know it's true. And it's really easy for that one to figure out. I mean, you just look at anyone who's actually tried to be elected to the office of the president and doesn't meet any of the disqualification clauses, because when that happens, they're disqualified. There have been people who've tried to run who are under the age of 35 and they get disqualified. You have people who run this year. We had somebody who tried to run. If anyone's familiar with the Young Turks, while they are left leaning, they're not really my brand of politics. But the guy who one of the major figures in that community decided that they were going to try and run for president, and they had to challenge the born citizen clause and failed. I mean, these are the kind of things that essentially get checked before somebody goes into office. So the idea that we'd elect a president who wasn't an American citizen is laughable at best. And because of this, I had a problem because of that, and the autism and the ADHD and the fact that I had a lot of problems when I was young. My mom and her and dad and the issues that they had, not really being able to deal with the needs that I had because of the same or similar issues or compound issues, just kind of bred a deep flavor of CPTSD into me, to the point to where I have a problem dealing with people who, believe weird things, believe things that you could just, look at and figure it out. So, when I got back to Houston here, which is where I'm living now, what is Knife doing? He was walking for a while in one direction. I guess they're changing his jobs, but he can't get there in time to actually do any good. Thank God the day is set up to where they can heal these wounds. And it's really amazing that they heal in like a day. That is amazing. But so now that I'm an adult and I've just progressively had a harder time dealing with people. I don't really deal with people well face to face, especially ones that I disagree with to the point to where it makes me emotional. I have a hard time doing face to face debating because of that. Which is one of the things that helped me ruin my last relationship, because every time we'd have an argument, I'd have to fight to not go into the type of you could probably call it, abusive defensiveness. I'd get super defensive, and I'd turn into a button pusher and all that kind of stuff, because I was used to being that way with my mom. And so when I got back to Houston, I contacted an old friend who was always, he is just really a great guy. It's one of the reasons why I thought of him first to contact him, and maybe we can go eat lunch, and because I don't really have any friends at all. That's just how I am. And I figured it'd be a good idea to reconnect with him. And I did, and it was a nice conversation, but, as is hard for me not to. We eventually started talking about philosophy and politics, and he had mentioned that he had voted for Trump because his logic was is that his paycheck was higher under Trump, and it wasn't under the Democratic Party when they were in office, and of course this stuck in my head because currently I'm following politics. I kind of have to. It's just it's kind of entertaining, I guess you could say, watching the country turn into what it's turning into. Which I don't know what the hell that is, but I do know that we're in one of those parts of history that's very tumultuous because of the failings of the systems that we've put in place. Things like capitalism are kind of causing issues at the moment, and the people who support it are having a hard time explaining to the people who it's affecting badly why they keep supporting it, and that's just one of the many things in our world that are causing a problem. So when I have somebody like that unapologetically voted for somebody who, because the news has a really easy way of what the hell is that guy shouting? The news has a really easy way of depicting people who support that type of candidate to make them kind of, it's easy to dismiss them because the media portrayal of them is very focused on the ones that are just, unabashedly racist or just generally bad people or uninformed or whatever. So when you run into somebody who's a lot more moderate on that scale, somebody who just kind of voted for who they thought was best, it's kind of hard to kind of like match that in your mind, with somebody who's not that type of person. So, and of course this person was kind of too busy for me anyway. They had a life of their own and children and wife and church. Another thing that I'm not all that hip with, the whole religion thing. Certainly not my thing, but I can deal with somebody and their beliefs. You can believe whatever you want. I don't really care as long as you're not hurting anyone with it. It's fine by me. But I kind of knew Donald Trump was a bad person before he even ran for president. I can show you several things that I ran into just in pop culture, as uninformed as I was when I was younger, that would have made me look at him and say, no, why would anyone want to put this person in our political arena, right? Things like taking out full-page ads in major publications accusing innocent people of crimes that they didn't commit. And, of course, never backing down from that despite, again, objective evidence that these people were innocent. It was pretty obvious from things like David Letterman interviews and news articles that the guy was pretty much criminally exploiting the New York real estate market, which he's finally paying for. And of course, he would have probably kept getting away with it had it not been for those meddling kids. No, had he not been elected as president, because that pretty much caused people to go over his finances with a fine-tooth comb, and now he is where he is now. Not and to keep from like slamming one side, I do want to make sure that I put out there that both political parties that we have, the only two choices that we have, don't align with my beliefs at all. While I look at them both and they're both, capitalistic supporters, we have no left-wing party in our country at all. So needless to say, when Donald Trump stands up there and talks about, going against the leftists and the cultural Marxist and et cetera, I have to laugh every time, because there's no such thing in our government. And how do I know? Because I am one of those people. I'm one of those people who are so far left that they can't identify with our current government. The closest thing to leftists we have are people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, who are, these are social democrats, which means they're still capitalists and they're not left wing. They're still preserving the current hegemonic system that we have, and that makes them conservative. So we have in our country one conservative party and one hyper-conservative regressive party. So when I criticize the right, those criticisms kind of fall on both of those parties. But when it comes to who I'd actually support, typically the people who are less likely to remove me of personal liberties, or people who are less likely to take away personal liberties from anyone, right? And up until about the 1930s, 1940s, somewhere around there, the whole New Deal era, we had two parties that pretty much supported white supremacy up until that era. At the time, the Republican Party, oddly enough, was the more progressive party. But when the Democratic Party decided to drop a lot of the public pretense of white supremacy, it basically caused a flip. The Republicans suddenly were not the progressive party anymore, which, if you could even call them that, and they had a migration, and they flipped progressiveness versus progressiveness versus regressiveness, and because of that, even though they can't really openly say it as much anymore, due to the whole political correctness thing, they are still definitely the party of white supremacy, of patriarchy. And I can look at it and objectively figure that out. I can figure that out by their actions. I can figure that out by the kind of people who support them. So when I hear somebody who supported literally the worst leader, the most criminal leader our country has ever had, somebody who is unabashedly started an insurrection to keep himself in office, somebody who has openly stated that they would suspend the Constitution to weed out their political enemies. I mean, this is shit this is, Venezuela shit. This is dictator shit. And if I was one of the kind of people who voted for him under the pretense that, oh, well, he's just the more beneficial to my way of life at that time, and then eventually found out, oh my God, he's being indicted in 4 cases. He's been sued civilly more times than I can probably count. He has 91 criminal counts. I mean, he is basically making the most notorious president in U.S. history, Richard Nixon, look like a nice guy. So to actually say that you voted for him without that realization and without that, apologetic tone, yeah, I have a problem dealing with that. And I basically told that friend that, has good reconnecting with you, but I don't really think that I could handle being around somebody who I knew, held that type of opinion. And, I'm not gonna lie, when I do that, it makes me feel like a horrible person. And I probably am because of it. But the problem is I can't be around people like that. I find that when I'm around people who I feel do things that are not great or not responsible, I find myself becoming irresponsible too. I had a whole portion of my life where I was hanging around people who weren't the greatest people in the world, and it pretty much led me to realize that, and while I'm not like fobbing off my own actions, I mean, I'm personally responsible for everything I've done in my life. I found that I was more apt to do bad things hanging around people who weren't the greatest. So even as early as in my early 20s, I started weeding away friends who I couldn't really live with the examples that they set to me, because it would make me feel objectively like a bad person. So even if it makes me a bad person, not wanting to know or be around people like this, better that than espousing the attitudes and behavioral patterns that these types of people espouse, What's that weird noise? I wonder if it's because my window's open. Maybe somebody's out there. Or no, maybe it's the game. Where are you going, knife? I think he's trying to find a cage, right? Dude, these poor guys. These guys are going to get attacked just trying to get back to a cage. Anyway, that was my thought for the day, was that I'm probably a bad person, and it reflects really well in the fact that I don't really have any friends, that I'm not really all that close with my family, despite... And that's the fun thing, is the last family that I had that decided that they didn't really want me to be a part of it. Had my mom still been alive, I'd be homeless right now, because I couldn't deal with having to deal with her. It wouldn't have happened. As it is, I'm having hard times adjusting to this new place that is just way different from how I'm used to living. And it is really hard to deal with. And I just haven't been in a good mental state, at least, I mean, for the past 20 years, but even worse for the last 5. And I just, I'm having a hard time figuring out what to do about it. Oh, looks like Thorn found his cage. About Knife, how's Knife doing? Are they anywhere near each other? Oh, not bad, not bad. Of course, they're at that, like, I'm starving, but the game's not going to let me die starving, so... Oh, nice, Thorn. Look at that 90% chance to pick them locks. Excuse me. Hello. What are you doing there? Maybe I should sneak before I do that. Well, he's not coming back up. Yeah, so I don't really know what to do when it comes to dealing with people, because I'm having a really hard time dealing with anyone, honestly. And I know I should be more tolerant, but when you know that being around people that you feel aren't great people for reasons that they don't think that they're great, that they don't really think affects that, it's really hard for me to deal with. It's really hard for me to deal with. And I've gotten to the point to where, I've I spend most of my time learning about the world and the social systems and the power structures and the political systems and whatnot, and it's really hard for me to deal with this stuff. Wow, corn is like, oh, and that is a break, huh? So I'll be back shortly with some more Kenshi. Hope everybody's doing okay and not really getting triggered by my BS here.